That was an example from this book, Beginner Gypsy Jazz Guitar by Robin Nolan. Robin Nolan is a phenomenal gypsy jazz guitar player, and he's very generous with sharing his knowledge, and this is his latest book. So as always, when I cover a book like this, I'm not here to give you the content for free or anything like that. It's more like a review or how I work with this book and what you can expect to learn if you get it. And it also gives me a chance to talk about one of my favorite subjects and one of my favorite genres or subgenres of music, gypsy jazz, or playing in the tradition of Django Reinhardt. So let's get right into the content of this book, shall we? So it's called Beginner Gypsy Jazz Guitar, but it's Beginner Gypsy Jazz. It's not a beginner guitar book, right? Like you need to be quite accomplished guitar player or you need to know how to play the guitar, basically. Or you could be somebody who is like even very good jazz guitar player, but are curious about how to play this style, and this could be an excellent book for you. Introduction, there are, according to him, 5 pillars, just like I think there is in Islam. 5 pillars of gypsy jazz: rhythm, soloing, gig-ready boot camp, playing together and making music, capstone, and moving forward. I should also mention that there's audio downloads, a lot of audio with this book, and also video links. There are like links to videos, lessons for each chapter. The first thing you need to know how to do when you play this style is to be able to comp. If you want to go to a gypsy jazz jam session, you definitely need to know how to comp in this specific style. The first example here is a comping example. So this style of playing is called La Pompe. So we call that La Pompe, and this would be an example of a minor blues chord progression. You could, for example, play the tune Blues en mineur by Django Reinhardt. So the book will give you a lot of examples of tunes that you need to know that are essential in this style. So here we're playing kind of shell voicings that you would also play in regular jazz. Another way to play minor 6 chords would be to play like this. I would play it like that. He shows this. You could even play that what I just did. But I'm not very good with using the thumb, so I don't play the root on the bottom, I play this. The thing though is that you want a 5th kind of or a 4th, so minor chord would be like that, minor 6. Anytime there's a minor chord, you will play it as a minor 6 chord, or a triad even. They don't play minor 7s unless it's a 2-5-1. If it has a subdominant function, then you can play the 7th. But if it's a tune in G minor, as like in this case, you will play minor 6. And you strum away like this. And it's actually more difficult than you might think. And also I find that a lot of people say contradicting things. For example, here he says that there's an emphasis on the 2 and 4. But I've heard people say that there should not be an emphasis on 2 and 4. I've heard people say that you should play the first chord, put more emphasis on the first chord. And I've heard people say that you should not do that. So it's very confusing already. you just have to learn from people that know how to do this. So it's kind of difficult to learn this stuff from a book. But there are also links to videos, and there's like footage of him here, or pictures of him showing how the proper position and stuff like that, hand positions and stuff. There's also, you can play G minor like this. Because G minor 6 and E minor 7 flat 5 share the same notes, so that's something you have to kind of wrap your head around, that in this style, this chord is a minor 6 chord. It's a G minor, it's not an E minor 7 flat 5. I mean, it is, and you can use it like that too, but most of the time we play this voicing as a minor chord, like a G minor 6. So of course I'm just kind of going through quickly here. There's a lot more obviously to it than what I'm telling you here. Another interesting thing there is I was playing that minor blues, so I played G minor 6 like this, C minor 6, and then the E flat 7 and the D7, everything with the same shape. I don't think back in the day when Django Reinhardt and his brothers played that they played like this, to be honest. I'm not a scholar, so I don't know, but I think this is something that came after. But it's very efficient, right? You can play so a D7 like that. So I'm not even playing the note D, because I don't have to, right? Because the bass player, we kind of hear that note anyway. But I could also play like this. So a whole bunch of different chord shapes you need for dominant chords, you need voicings for major chords. I should mention that I have made a video, like a similar video, recently with Dennis Chang's book, Gypsy Jazz Guitar Secrets. And so a lot of this stuff, if you've seen that, you've seen a lot of this stuff already, because there's a lot of the same thing, right? And I also had Dennis Chang on as a guest on my podcast type episodes. And here is some information on how to sit properly, and like it's very important to have the right position and like hand position and arm position. Basic La Pompe swing, what's what we just did. Then there is a variation on this where there's like an upstroke, like a ghost. Instead of just throw in, it's like drums. Like hi-hat, right? Early jazz. He calls that the upstroke Rosenberg style. It was made popular by the great Jimmy Rosenberg. I did not know that, and I've never heard anybody else call it that before, but that could very much be the case. Yeah, there's some links here to videos that you can, the videos that go along with this book that you can watch. Because here you kind of need to see somebody do it. But the gypsy comping is something I constantly kind of work on it. There are guitar players in this style that only play rhythm. They don't bother with soloing. And that is, of course, one of the reasons for that is that you mic the guitars differently when you play. There's no boost pedal here. You can't boost your sound for soloing. So you gotta have a lower volume if you're a rhythm guitarist, right? So that's why it's a pragmatic reason there. The challenge when you play this style, and he talks about this, is to make it interesting if you're playing a concert, if you have a set list. Because if every tune is... the next tune... and then my tune in minor... it's kind of brutal. It's not really music for the big stage, right? This is campfire music. It's jam session music. Imagine you are at the campsite and people are jamming and you sit in and you go to another group and you listen. That's the ultimate setting for this style. It's not meant to be played on big stages, but sometimes people do, like Burel Lagrène plays huge stages because he's so famous, and they can make it work, but most of the time people play this in smaller settings or in a club, like a cafe even. And if you live in a big city in America or in Europe, chances are that there are gypsy jazz jams going on, maybe monthly or something. even weekly. So the challenge is to make it, interesting. So there are other styles within this style that you can play. The Gypsy Bossa. That's the next chapter. So you play like a kind of a bossa nova. So all this stuff is explained right in the book. One very good example of that is the tune Bossa Dorado by Rosenberg Trio. Or I think it's by the Rosenberg Trio. Also, For Sephora is another tune that is in this style. Then we have the Gypsy Bolero. That's a tune called Troublant Bolero by Django Reinhardt. So let's find the backing track and play that a little bit. It has this famous intro that I'm not really sure of. Has some strange chords in there. I think it's this. So I play this rhythm. It's a bolero. It's not super common. This is the only example I can think of. But there are other tunes that you can play like this. You could play Django's Castle. Like that, even though Django Reinhardt didn't play that tune like that. Just to break things up so it's not every tune is not La Pompe. It's interesting, I think they play this in one of the recordings of this tune back in the day. So it's like a Barry Harris, right out of the Barry Harris book, right? Like that's a E6, this is a B6. And the diminished chord between those chords, right? Like I've talked about that in my video on Barry Harris movement. So this is for those of you who are Barry Harris freaks. They're like very sophisticated. Then there is something he calls the Gypsy Samba. Again, I haven't heard that label. I think I've called it Gypsy Rumba, but so. So different ways of playing that. You could play it with just alternate strumming. Or you could go down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up. If it's super fast, I can't do... I have to go... alternate strumming, right? So this is from Sven Ljungbeck's channel. So Caravan in the Gypsy Jazz style. This is Sven Ljungbeck's Gypsy Jazz channel. This is fast. Yeah, that's pretty fast. So it's a workout just trying to play like that. So I would call that Gypsy Rumba. That's what I've heard of. Maybe that's wrong here. He calls it Gypsy Samba. I also recommend that you check out the interview that Rick Beato did with Josko Stefan, one of the most famous players in this style. He plays this tune like this. That was crazy. He plays the chord like that. A7 to B flat 7. It's just so awkward.
A bit more traditional. That's a nice one that I like. A7 chord, and I don't play the main note. I start here with the fifth, with the pinky. And there is a song that I play. There's a very famous video when I play with Tommy, when we play Caravan. And especially on Caravan, when I play this Gypsy rumba rhythm that sounds more like this. Then sometimes it sounds a bit woomy if I play maybe the low A string. So I like that chord a lot because it has more mid
in there, without the root.
It has more mid range. You know, the frequencies. It sounds different to me. It sounds more, fluent if I play that like this. Especially when I play with bass.
They also often play waltzes, so valse musettes. So sometimes here they also use the ghost notes. And sometimes you don't, and then you can also swing it. Like a regular jazz waltz, you can mix these things. This is Montagne Sainte-Geneviève Django's Waltz. And you don't usually solo over these waltzes, you just play them. They're often very, very kind of tricky to play, and there's so many of them. Valse musette. You have Wasso's waltz, you have Indifference. Same chords. So they're kind of technical exercises, like etudes almost. You know how in my videos I like to talk about that there aren't really many good jazz etudes for guitar players, but here you actually find, like this one is very... It's a very challenging thing to play, and it's like with the Charlie Parker bebop heads, you have to practice them all the time, or there's maintenance involved. Then there's something he calls a Gypsy finger bossa. I'm not sure about that. So yeah, and then there's also this idea of playing ballads. If you have Nuage, which actually is not supposed to be play that slow, I don't think, but you can play it as a ballad. You can play it very short, and then maybe mix it up, long chords. I'm sure you've heard this tune, Nuage. So they could be super short, but you can also play long chords. You can to mix it up. It could be ghost, the upstrokes, but you have to be a little bit careful with that. It could sound a little bit silly. So that's another style. So we had La Pompe, swing, but there were different kinds of La Pompe. Then we had the Gypsy Bossa, that was often very common. We had the Bolero, Gypsy Bolero. Just put the word Gypsy in front of everything. And then we had the Gypsy Waltz and what he called Gypsy Samba. Those are different styles of comping, I guess you could say, in this genre called Gypsy Jazz. And all of this is explained in this book with audio examples, even video examples. Then there are some rhythm exercises. Then he talks about soloing. So what I like about this style, there's a lot of things I like. It's just keeping it simple. So it's a major scale. Okay, here's the G major scale. And then there's another one. Okay, that's it. You know, it doesn't go crazy like some books. Like, how many ways can you practice a major scale? How many different fingering combinations can you come up with? If you know my channel, if you know me, you know that I love to dig into that kind of stuff. But it's also really fresh to just not do that. Just like, here are the notes of G major. What else? What more do you need? The tune is in G major. There you go. And then you have the minor scale. This style is all about licks. So you need licks for major chords, and you need licks for minor chords and dominant chords and diminished chords maybe. That's pretty much it. If you have a bunch of licks that work over those chords, that's it. And then you just have to be able to kind of learn how to put everything together until you become, you know, better, and then you can just play by instinct, so you don't have to think about licks and stuff. But in the beginning, if you want to make it sound like you're playing in the style, you need some licks that are from the style, right? So just like you would do if you were to learn to play country guitar, you would have to learn a few country licks if you never played country guitar before, or it wouldn't just sound right. You know how some modern jazz, it's all about kind of not playing the cliches and trying to find your own way of doing everything? This is not that. I can't think of any gypsy jazz player who doesn't play in the tradition. You could be more or less orthodox. Some gypsy jazz players are very traditional. And then there are some the more experimental, but it's more, yeah, you need some licks. So luckily in this book there are many licks. Let's learn some licks over a G major chord. How about this one? Super simple. So I'm playing surrounding the chord tones of a G major triad. So if I play Lady Be Good, perhaps, another standard you need to learn. Works great. That's not one. That's Lady Be Good, and the backing track is from a YouTube channel called The Guitar Improvisation, or I guess you pronounce it, French guitar improvisation. Yeah, some scale stuff, minor licks, more licks. I should say that there are some licks that are like very, very Django Reinhardt sounding. So if you maybe want to stay away from those because it's like so obviously Django Reinhardt. But I like to play the most cliche lines. So here's a minor lick. So it starts with a pickup. So it's a G minor triad. That's a sixth. And also, there's a ninth there. You know, if you play a G minor triad with an added 9. But I noticed that these players, they often do this, but only down at the bottom. And then it's just a triad. They play like that all the time. Which is kind of weird. So this would work over that blues en mineur we played in the beginning. Ah. So there is a specific way of soloing and picking and a specific technique, and it's all about getting volume. So you use downstrokes and you play closer to the bridge normally, and you use vibrato. So that the first thing, most guitar players who know how, let's say you're a jazz player and you want to look into this stuff to maybe even get a guitar like this. You go to a jam session, the first thing they notice, I've noticed, and this includes myself, is, oh, I can't hear myself. Like, how do these players cut through? But it's because you use heavy picks. Not everybody does, but, and then you play with downstrokes, and you use vibrato and stuff like that to get volume. And I talk more about this in my review of Dennis Chang's book, Gypsy Guitar Picking Secrets, I think it's called. There's a lot of YouTube channels that cover this these days. Back in the day, it was very hard to find any information. Only a few books out there, and Robin Nolan had a few books. I think they are not in print anymore, so now it's this book. And then there's the Dennis Chang book and a few others. But you have Christian van Hemmert's channel. You have Dennis Chang's YouTube channel and all the videos he's doing. And Sven Ljungbeck, I pronounce it Swedish because it's a Swedish sounding name, but he's Dutch. And a few others. This guy Marvin, is that his name? Marvin has a few YouTube or Gypsy Jazz lessons on the technique that are pretty good. Then there is some stuff that is out there that's pretty bad, unfortunately. So these guitars are, you know, this is a replica or is a copy of it's Chinese made, so it's not a real Machiavelli, but this is supposed to be one of the better ones, the Chinese made ones. This is John Jorgensen model. Of course, it can get pretty expensive if you want to get a real handmade Gypsy Jazz guitar. You don't have to get one of those, but there are cheaper options too. Eastman makes really good. They're not super cheap, but they're cheaper than handmade guitars, and they're very, very good. The ones I've tried are very good. And also Altamira, and unfortunately I don't think they're in production. I'm not sure about that. It seems like they're not in production anymore. Then there are some specific techniques that they use to create that kind of rapid, fast playing, and this is like a diminished pattern. There's stuff like that in here, and this is like in the style of Stockeler Rosenberg, one of the biggest names in this style. And I find with this stuff, you have to practice it all the time, and you have to play all the time to keep it up, or you know, you have to maintain your chops. The magnum opus of gypsy jazz is a tune minor swing. And he talks about ear training and how you can solo like with just chord tones, keeping it really, really simple. So here's an example of just using chord tones pretty much. I think it's just chord tones on the tune minor swing, or the chord changes of minor swing. I play the wrong note there, and I'll tell you why. There it is. That's it. I could even comp that. It sounds great. So I get the feeling that Robin likes to keep it simple. He doesn't complicate things. He keeps it really simple. So these are just chord tones. Pretty much, there are some extensions, and then when they, over the E7, it plays like a diminished. Other than that, it was just chord tones pretty much. The reason I played that note wrong is because I have a complaint, and I've covered a lot of books by this publisher's fundamental changes. And they make some great stuff, don't get me wrong, but the notation, I mean, I don't like to be negative when I review books. I focus on good things, but every time, almost every time I go over a book by this publisher, the notation is terrible. There's a A sharp where there's supposed to be a B flat. And I'm actually reading the notes, right? I'm not reading the tabs. Sometimes I look at the tabs, but I'm reading notes. So get it right. Please get somebody to proofread because the rhythms are written wrong, and then a lot of the times, and the accidentals are wrong very often, and it's a little bit disrespectful, right? Because if I'm buying this book and I want to read, if it's like, I mean, this kind of notation sometimes wouldn't even pass first year in college, right? So it's just get somebody to proofread the notes, please. I don't think it's the author's, because it's not his fault. It's somebody who is entering the music into some tab software, I'm guessing, and then they just turn it into notation and without checking that it's actually correct. I think that's what's going on. So another thing he talks about is this bouncing technique to keep it really simple with a like that. Like, it's so simple, but that's how kind of Louis Armstrong played. Like, that's how it's swinging. So that's another example. 2Z E, so you can see that there are a lot of examples in this book, audio examples. You know, make it swing. So if I play blues en mineur again, and practice that technique of just bouncing intervals. If you follow my channel, you know that I love advanced theory and, to dig into concepts, Slonimsky and stuff like that. But every now and again, it's just so fresh to just, put that stuff aside and just look at how do you make it sound good? Because at the end of the day, when you're up there playing with people on the stage and things are happening, the kind of theory doesn't help you that much, right? Like, I'm of course not saying don't learn theory. I love jazz theory, but this kind of stuff, making it swing. That's key in this style. If you don't make it swing, if it ain't got that swing, right, it don't mean anything. Unfortunately, that's very true. Or maybe fortunately, that is very true. Yeah, there's some more stuff here, and I'm not covering everything, of course. Then there's his thoughts on how to prepare yourself for the live playing situation and jams, and you need to know intros and outros. If you go to a jam, people are going to start tunes a certain way and they're going to end tunes certain ways. So you need to be kind of prepared for that. And talks about memorizing tunes. So here's just like text. The art of dynamics. In gypsy jazz tunes, you need to know. And some more comping techniques. Moving forward, warm-up exercises. Metronome is your best friend. How and what to practice. Jam session etiquette. Finding your style. Learning new tunes. The Gypsy Jazz Repertoire is a bunch of tunes that are essential to know, and I think I know all of those tunes. Yeah, I know all of those tunes. Minor Swing, All of Me, Coquette, Dark Eyes, I Can't Give You Anything But Love, Manoir de mes rêves, Daphne, J'attendrai, Swing 42, Douce Ambiance, Nuage, I'll See You in My Dreams, etc. These are the standard repertoire in this style. Some of these tunes you find in the regular jazz situation as well, like All of Me, I guess, It Had to Be You, What Is This Thing Called Love could even be played in the modern style. And some of these tunes are specific gypsy jazz tunes, because they're Django Reinhardt tunes. Like this one. So you need to learn all those tunes and then be ready how they're gonna, if I play Lady Be Good, they're gonna probably start like this. And then you're in the tune. So you need to know how to comp in the style. You need to know how to start a tune and end a tune. There are many famous gypsy jazz tune endings, like the most common one is. So Robin Nolan has a lot of good stuff on his YouTube channel. I check this stuff out all the time. What I love, especially when he does like solos, like short, like etude style solos over some of these tunes, and they're all kind of linked to I guess his online schools and stuff like that. He does, even they do some retreats, I think, every now and again over there in Holland, I think he lives. And I have met Robin Nolan. I played with him one time, And he's a very nice guy, very generous with sharing his knowledge. And the latest example of that is this book that I can strongly recommend for somebody who is interested in gypsy jazz or somebody who already knows some gypsy jazz and wants to know more. Anything by Robin Nolan is really good to look at for that. So that was my review of Beginner Gypsy Jazz Guitar. Master the essential skills of gypsy jazz guitar rhythm and soloing by Robin Nolan. Thank you for your time and attention. I shall see you next time.